So I found myself in a place in life. It was in my late 50s, and I didn't have a sleeping pattern. I didn't have an eating pattern. I was 5'7", 240 pounds. I was eating whenever I woke up. I'd wake up for a few hours. I'd eat, watch some television, go back to sleep, rinse and repeat, And so here I am, 5'7", 240 pounds. I'm on up to, 10 meds. And previously, one day I came home on a Sunday after church, and my heart was beating really fast, unregularly fast. And I went through the day. It was 1:30 in the afternoon, and by 1:30 at night I was laying in bed. I couldn't sleep, and I said, honey, something's wrong, and we got to go to the ER. And I don't think I'd ever been to an ER except in my childhood, broken bones and stitches and things like that. But as an adult, I had never had anything, bad. But anyways, so we go, and right away I'm in the cubicle in the ER with the curtain around it, and I walk in, and the doctor's talking to me, telling him I got chest pains and things, and then I didn't know what he was doing, but he was slipping a nitroglycerin under my tongue, and anyways, the pain started to go away. It was 1:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, he'd take me to another city, to a large heart, medical center, a heart specialist medical center in a large town. We were living in a small town, and next thing I know, I'm meeting with a guy like Dr. House, and he's like, yeah, man, he goes, we're gonna go up there and look around, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, okay, go ahead. And he goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, if there's anything wrong, we're gonna fix it right then and there. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, we could unblock some blockages. I mean, look, it might even get to the point where we gotta crack your chest open and do open heart surgery. I'm like, and so I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, let's rock and roll this thing, So he's like, yeah, dude, let's do it. So they put me on the schedule for the next day. I mean, it was immediate. I mean, I was like number 13 on the schedule that day. And he said it could, take up to 2 hours for this, up to two plus hours, and they brought the lady in for me to sign all the medical forms, and they're saying, she's sitting there going, yeah, well, let me just, before you sign this, let me give you some statistics. 1 in 2,000, their heart stops. 1 in 2,000, they could stroke out. 1 in 2,000, you could bleed out. You could have a heart attack during, so she's going through all these different scenarios, before I sign my signature. And I'm thinking, not me, not me, not me. It's not my time yet. So I signed it. So the surgery, I'm on the table, boom, count 10, 9, 8 backwards, and boom, I'm gone. And, I wake up in this room with gurneys in it, like I'm in this closet room, but Dr. House comes in, he goes, hey, good news, the whole procedure took 20 minutes. We went up there and looked around. He said, you had a minor heart attack, barely a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm going to tell you, when I was in that cubicle, there was a whole lot more than just level 1 pain. And I prayed, but anyways, he said, but we're going to give you some medications to keep an eye on you and stuff. So anyways, So the next morning, his physician's assistant comes in, and he sits down on the edge of the chair that's next to my bed. And he goes, Hutch, he goes, I don't normally sit down in patients' rooms. I mean, because, like, we do open heart surgeries every day, 2 to 4 hour, 6 hour procedures. And we find people out in the hallway smoking a cigarette a couple hours after we're done. But he goes, and they don't care. He goes, but you know what? You seem like a guy that really cares, And he goes, let me just tell you. He goes, I'm just going to tell you the truth. He goes, if you keep going the way you're going, he says, in 3 to 5 years, you will be dead. You're going to die. And I talk about reality hitting you. I mean, so, and I'm thinking, well, not me, but he goes, we're going to put you on these meds. We're going to, keep track of you, and that. So the next thing I know, I'm on like blood pressure meds, high cholesterol, heart meds, diabetes medications. I mean, I've got heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high everything, and I'm eating handfuls of pills, I'm taking shots of insulin, I'm checking my blood. I mean, I'm doing all these different things now, and I'm in a routine, and it's handfuls of pills a day, and so 3 to 5 years, so I go, well, I'm going to straighten up my diet. So, I started eating salads with oil and vinegar, instead of eating 2 Five Guys double cheeseburgers at a sitting, I only ate 1, I cut down, I went from eating an extra large pizza by myself to, now I'm eating, like a large, I'm cutting down. And I'm not ordering 2 burrito boxes, at the taco restaurant. I'm just ordering 1. So I'm taking it easy, cutting back. I'm not drinking soft drinks anymore. I'll just drink, lots of sweet tea and, cut down into sugar and cream in my coffee. So, so it's 2 years later, almost to the day, I start getting chest pains again. And, they take me in again. And this time, they said, we had to put 3 stents in. You were 99, 95, and 90% blocked in all your major arteries leading to your heart. And they said you were a minute away, And so I got the stents. I felt great, and so we had just moved out of state, probably 6-8 months later, and I'm walking out to my mailbox. It's like 50 feet away, and I start getting these chest pains again. I'm like, what? And I looked up in the sky. I'm in a brand new place to live. I look up in the sky, and I just cried out to God. It was one of those moments, and I said, God, I don't want to die. There's some times when you just got to get real with yourself, And next thing I know, we're at a luncheon, and I'm hanging out with a friend, and I told him what I'd been through, and he goes, look at these pictures. He goes, look at me last year. I was 40 pounds heavier. He goes, I'm listening to this doctor's podcast. I want to connect you with her, and I think she can help you. So he even rode with me to my first appointment. And at that point in time, and he told me she was going to change my diet and maybe get me exercising and stuff. And, I had a big why, I walked into the appointment, and I said 2 things to the doctor. I said, number 1, if I die right now, my wife will kill me. I was just barely 61 years old at the time. And I said, number 2, I'll eat cardboard if you tell me to. So, you know, it's important to have a big why. Why do we want to be healthy? You know, because, you know, I wanted to stay healthy for my wife, for my loved ones, my sister, you know, my nieces and nephews, you know. I don't know what your why is, but you got a reason to stay healthy. And so I had to find that reason, and that's what's pushed me along in my health journey and my recovery all these years. So right away, she was this awesome cardiologist. She's also had a PA degree. She had 2 medical degrees. She also had a kitchen right in her practice where she taught cooking lessons. So she put me on a plant-based whole food diet, you know, and she happened to be an amateur endurance athlete. She had 7 Ironmans. Now this lady is in her 50s. 7 Ironmans. I mean, an Ironman is like a 2.5 mile swim, then like I think it's like 112 mile bike ride, and then you run a full marathon, 26.2 miles. She had 7 of those in over 40 to 50 marathons, you know. And I mean, this lady was a beast, and so I'm listening to her, and so she put me on a plant-based whole foods diet, you know, and she said, you know, number 1, you got to cut out these 3 things. We call it SOS. She said, you got to cut out all the salt, oil, and sugar out of your diet. And I'm like, okay, you know, and her daughter was my plant-based certified dietitian. And so, and her husband, you know, was a strength coach for a major university football team. So he was training pro athletes. So Doc put me on this regimen of eating, you know, at certain times, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not eating after 8 o'clock at night, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you know, maintaining 12 hours between my last meal of the day and my first meal, the breakfast, right? And cutting out all salt added, you know, and getting us to read the packages, you know. So my wife, she went, she cleaned out all our cupboards, you know. And the funny part about this was, in the 90s, I owned 2 meat companies. You know, I was Mr. Ribeye, you know, with the loaded baked potato with tons of butter, sour cream, chives, cheese. I mean, you know, I ate all the pizza, all the ice cream, all the cheeseburgers, you know, and all the steak and everything. I ate all the prime rib fat, you know, and everything off of it, you know. And I mean, I grew up in a home where, you know, I'll take, you know, the frosting off your cake. You know, I ate a 1/4 stick of butter on a muffin. You know, that's the way I was raised. And so all that went away. And I had to remind myself every day why I'm doing this. And so no salt, no oil. I mean, not even like olive oil, you know, not even fish oil, you know, not even coconut oil. You know, all these oils, because she told me fat is fat. She explained it this way. It's okay to eat a couple olives, you know, but 1 tablespoon of olive oil, it takes 45 olives to make 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So it's actually concentrated fat. And she said the problem with your body is you've eaten all this fat all these years, and it's created plaque, and it's blocked all the arteries in your heart. It's blocked your pancreas. It's blocked your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, everything, you know. And then once that plaque gets on there, I mean, your arteries just get stiff. And then when the blood's trying to flow through there, that's what creates the pain, you know. So when I started seeing her, she said, I want you to start walking 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. So, you know, I would go out and walk about 2 minutes, I'd get chest pain, so I just stopped walking. You know, and about 4 months later, she goes, how you doing? She's checking my blood sugar every day and my numbers, and thank God for the accountability, you know. We all need accountability. And so she goes, how's the walking coming along? I'm like, well, Doc, you know, the sun's been shining. It's really nice out, you know. And she's like, but are you walking, And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I haven't been walking. She goes, well, why aren't you walking? I said, because it hurts. She goes, well, okay, that's okay. Because I thought I was going to have another heart attack. I mean, And she said, no, that's okay. Everything's just stiff. She said, eat a handful of spinach or arugula or maybe a beet, before you walk, and that'll open up your heart. It's like a natural epinephrine, And there are natural ways, instead of medications. And, I just found out that I'm on this gerbil wheel with doctors where they would just say, well, we're just going to up your dosage, We'll test you again in 3 months and see how you're doing. Just watch what you're eating. Well, the whole time the doctors, I'm watching when I'm eating. I'm watching that double cheeseburger that goes down, And I'm trying to be careful now. I'm eating more salads with oil and vinegar, tons of oil and stuff on it. And I'm only having like the 2-piece fried chicken dinner instead of the bucket, So, I was watching things, And, but anyways, now I'm with this doctor, and she said, no salt, no oil, no sugar, no sugar. No more candy bars, no more cookies with all the frosting on them, the Christmas cookies, everything that you're used to, all the traditions in your life. And, I come to realize that our life is built around food, like a birthday party, food, right? A death in the family, a meal, Then you got Thanksgiving, the biggest, time to eat. And then Christmas 30 days right after that. Oh, and then Super Bowl a couple months later. I mean, everything's food. We get a new job. We got birthdays and anniversaries, and everything's built around food. So I found myself, eating a plant-based diet. And sometimes I just had to take my own food with me, and people made a lot of fun of me. But, over the course of the first few months, I mean, I was 5'7", 240 pounds, when I started with this doctor. And within 6 months, I lost 40 pounds. And I said, Doc, I'm losing like 7 pounds a week. She goes, oh, yeah. She didn't even talk to me about, weight loss. She said, I'm going to get you off those meds. I'm going to get you healthy. And you know what she told me? This one fact, I'll never forget this. She said, Hutch, there is absolutely no reason to have any disease in your body. Because if you put the right nutrition in, and move a little bit, all the barks, berries, the plants, the fruits, the vegetables, everything. If you put it into your body, that your body will begin to heal itself. And I started putting these foods in my body. I was off blood pressure medicines with no salt, oil, and sugar for 3 days. I was off all blood pressure medicine in 3 days. I mean, I was seeing my body was responding. I wasn't taking 2-3 naps a day anymore. I mean, I actually had energy for the first time in 30 years, And I mean, listen, health problems just don't happen like that. Your car just doesn't break down one day, I mean, we got to add oil to it. I mean, parts wear out and things, and through my journey in life and continuing to just cram food into me and sit around and not exercise and be active, my body just basically quit on me, right? And everything got clogged up in my body. But for the first time ever, now I'm eating lots of greens. I'm eating greens like kale and spinach and arugula. Man, these are called nitrates. And when you chew them, we don't even do, she said, don't do smoothies. That's basically, you want your saliva, the amylase in your saliva, to mix with the nitrates in these greens, and then it produces nitric oxide. And man, that you swallow that and it gets into your blood system and it goes right through all your veins and arteries, and it brings your body alive. It took all the neuropathy, all the pain out of my feet. You know, it unclogged my fatty liver, and it made all my arteries soft and supple, and it widens it. It opens everything up, you know, and you feel great. And so I'm in this miracle transition in just days, weeks, and months. It won't take long. Your body will respond quickly. And about 9 months into treatment, you know, I just got this big idea, and I played sports through college in the 70s, you know, baseball, and I played football and baseball in high school, but I hadn't done anything, you know, in 45 years, and you know, getting out and walking now, you know, and I said, Doc, I want you to prepare me for a marathon. And she just smiled. She said, I can do that. Now, I'm going to tell you, it just like burped out of me, like, you are, you know, an endurance athlete. Because I was thinking, if she can be one, I can be one. I was still over 200 pounds, you know. No, just a little under 200 pounds when I got this big idea to do a marathon, you know. And but I was walking every day, and then she taught me how to walk properly and to do breathing exercises and breathe through my nose, which oxygenates your lungs, you know, and gives you more energy and burns more calories. And just took me through cadence drills, walking, how many times I'm striking on my right foot. But I ended up doing a method called the Jeff Galloway method for running a marathon. And I ended up, you know, I hadn't ran in 45 years, so I would run for 5 seconds, walk for 5 minutes. And I built up to 2-minute runs, 2-minute walks, and about 14 months later, I did my first marathon at 64 years old. Yeah. And, you know, I had never ran a 5K, you know, 3.1 miles. I never ran a 10K, 6.2 miles. I never ran a half marathon. My first race was a full 26.2 marathon, you know, and just thankful for my doctor. She ran alongside of me the whole way, and she took my blood pressure and my heart rate every 10 seconds. And, you know, it took me over 6 hours, because she asked me, she goes, what's your goal time going to be, you know? And I said, my goal time is to cross the finish line before they bring in the porta potties. You know, that was my goal. So we made it in over 6 hours, but, you know, it was amazing. And she says, I just want you to finish with a smile on your face. And here she is, Ironman, 7 Ironmans, 40 to 50 marathons. And she said that was the most enjoyable race of her entire life. And it was amazing. And, you know, she told me when I was doing my training runs, I was running up to, you know, I started 4 miles, then 8 miles, you know. I was training 6 days a week, basically for 14 months. And that's off after the first 9 months when I started, you know, eating right, just walking. But I started the training for the marathon 9 months after that, and that took 14 months of 6 days a week training, you know, watching every kernel of food I ate, measuring. I got a watch, you know, that had all my heart rates and lap times, and it showed all the graphs and everything, and I would send them to her, you know, and you know, she didn't want to overwork my heart. I had to strengthen my heart muscle, you know, after 2 heart attacks or a heart attack in 3 stints, and I did have a second heart attack in 7 stints, you know. And after the race, you know, we just rejoiced, and she said, I want to do a podcast with you, you know, and she interviewed me. And she told me right before the podcast, she goes, I looked up all the race results, and I was in the 61 to 65 age group. And I got third place. I got third place in my age group. I got the podium on my first race ever. You know, and I remember those, I do a long run on Saturdays and take Sundays off. She said, I'm going to let your microbes repair themselves for a day. It's important that you recover and take time to rest. But I would do up to 20-mile runs. I did 4 of those, you know, before the 26. So, and I'd be sore for, you know, a day after, 2 days after. And, you know, and she goes, I just want to make sure that your clothing doesn't rub here or there. You know, we're doing an 18-mile shakedown, you know, so that, because a lot of things can happen during a 26-mile race. So she prepared me from A to Z, you know. And, you know, she made sure, she said, you go slow, don't, just keep your heart rate low. You know, this is a marathon, we want to strengthen you. We don't want to pull any muscles. We don't want to tear any tendons or ligaments. You know, I walked for many months just to strengthen the ligaments and tendons, you know, in my ankles, you know, in my feet, you know, because I hadn't done anything, you know. So you got to start off very slowly, you know, in this recovery process. So I ran a marathon, and that was just amazing. And then she's, you know, right away, she's like, you're going to run one next year? And I'm like, I got to think about it, you know, and you know, I took a little time off after that marathon, but yep, I did a second marathon. I just had to prove to myself that it wasn't a fluke, you know. And that second marathon, that was a tough one. That was a real tough one. You know, I asked Doc, you know, in her office one day, she's got all her jerseys up. She ran in France and Germany and all these, you know, Hawaii Ironmans and, you know, all these things. And I said, you know, out of your 40 marathons, how many good ones did you have? She said, out of 40, I had 4, you know. And so, you know, after I would do these 20-mile runs, I'd say, Doc, man, this is rough. She goes, that's why they call it a marathon. You know, not everybody's out there doing it, but she said your body can endure a lot more than you think it can. So anyways, you know, I had my diet humming, and she honed in my diet, and, you know, 30 to 60 days before the marathon, I called it, I'm on marathon lockdown with precision eating. I mean, morning, noon, night, you know, precision eating, you know, measuring things and my exercises, my running, you know, and I was doing some other exercises in that. So anyways, so all that while, and so now I'm into 2 years with her, and I'm down to about 3 meds out of 10, you know, and things are going well. So I'm chronicling, you know, all of this. And the reason I'm making this video is I know how to get people healthy, wise, and wealthy. You know, I know what it takes, but it starts with your why. Why am I doing this, you know? And I just want to tell you that there is a plan for your life. And you know what? You may have had dreams when you were younger, and you might have figured, you know, I'm just letting those go. You know, like those will never come to fruition now. I'm telling you, I'm doing things. I mean, I'm a year away from 70 years old now. And I'm doing things that I always dreamed about doing. I want to tell you that once you start this recovery, this journey, and all it starts with is I'm going to give you the basics. A, B, C. 1, 2, 3. I told Doc, I said, and she would tell me the science behind things and that, but I just said, Doc, listen, I believe you know, you're the scientist here. You know, you've proven out the theories. You measure all the increments. You know all the measurements. You know all the ounces and pounds. You know all the therapies. I mean, she knows everything about health and nutrition, movement. She knows about sleeping patterns. She knows about eating. You know, I'm telling you, I had a whole team of experts, you know, and I was just blessed to have that. But I'm telling you, I've written down a lot of notes, you know, and I always told her, I said, just talk to me like a 4-year-old. Just do this. Just eat this. You know, do I boil it? Do I steam it? How do I eat it? How many blueberries do I eat? You know, how many you know. So, you know, I want to just leave you with this. I want to tell you that the longest journey begins with the very first step. And this is your first step. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a series of videos. We're going to do ebooks. I'm going to create materials, things for you to be able to have, you know, and I want you to be able to live your dreams.